Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you liked the last couple of videos, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that bell so you don't miss any of the notifications or anything else coming up soon. So the simple soda bread recipe includes 750 grams of plain flour, 250 grams of Porridge Oats, 60 grams of soft brown sugar, 100 grams of dark or Black Treacle, 30 grams of Bicarbonate Soda and 30 grams of salt, and 750 grams of Buttermilk, which I don't have today, so you can alternatively swap that out like I have here. I found the best recipe works really well like this. It's 250 grams of everything, so that's whole milk, Guinness and soda water. So it's all in the same bowl together. This method is as simple as the ingredients list. So all you got to do is separate the liquids, which is the Black Treacle and the soda water, Guinness and the milk. And then in the dry bowl, with all the dry goods, you're going to add the plain flour, you're going to add all the porridge, the plain flour, you're going to add all the soft brown sugar to the plain flour, and you're going to add all the baking powder, all the bicarbonate soda and the salt to the flour. So everything in like that. Now all you have to do is with your hand, you don't have a mixing bowl, you can put it all in the mixing bowl, the big KitchenAid mixers, they're quite good. With your hand you make a claw shape, like that, you put your hand in, and the nice and clean hands I've got here, so you just mix them up nice like that, like a claw, like you're a mixer basically, so you just turn your hand into mixer. So rotate the bowl and rotate your hand in a circle at the same time, just making sure everything's nicely incorporated. That's the oats and the sugar and the flour, bicarb and salt. It's all mixed up with your hand as a claw. Nice and simple. Right, so once that's done, you push that to one side. Liquids, so your treacle, your soda water and everything like that. You mix all your treacle and everything together, so it makes it nice and easy to incorporate. Now, I always weigh a little bit more than I need on treacle because you always lose a little bit in the bottom of the bowl. So all that goes into the bowl here. It's a bit tedious, a bit sticky. So obviously there's a little secret: if you get a little bit of a wet hand or a wet spatula, it does help to get it out just a little bit easier. Don't make it like too wet. Just make it so you can get it off the spatula. It should just slip off. You don't want to be adding extra water to it. You just want to be making sure it can all come out the bottom. So that's on top there like that. And all this goes into here. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit so I can try and get it off the spatula as much as possible. So that, and give it a good little mix. Make sure it's all nicely incorporated. It doesn't come off with your finger. Try and get it off like that as much as you can. That's why I said you either weigh a little bit more because you always lose a little bit in the mixing process, or pour your treacle straight into your liquid mix. For this example, I have to show you the weight and the measurements out, but you can just pour your liquid into the buttermilk or the soda water and the Guinness like I have here. So everything's in here like that. I'm going to lose a little bit on the spatula, it's no worries. Grab your whisk and give that a little whisk up. So everything's incorporated, so you're not going to get one big chunk of treacle sat in your bread or your dough. Nice mix up like this, so everything's incorporated. You can see the colours change brilliantly from the Black Treacle. That's what helps the colour on the bread. We've got Guinness in there, we've got soda water in there, we've got whole milk in there. Like I said, if you haven't got buttermilk, use those three ingredients. They seem to work really well for me. The soda water just helps to give a little bit of the carbonation, helps to give it a little bit of lift. Along with the bicarbonate soda, they react nicely together. So everything's in there nicely mixed. Now for the fun bit, we're going to mix all the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. So as you can see now, I've got the wet ingredients mixed and combined. I've got the dry ingredients mixed and combined. And over here I've got a little bit of extra plain flour, which I'm just going to flour the bench with once we're ready to go. So what I've done now is just put a little bit of flour on my hands, and I add a little bit of this the wet mixture to the dry mixture. Just a little bit by a little bit, you don't have to add it all at once, otherwise you can't mix it all together. And with the claw method again, your hand goes in and nicely mix it all back up. It should all go into the bread dough, the flour, and form a nice little dough. It will get a bit sticky, don't worry about that. Don't panic and think, oh, I've got to wash my hands because they're dirty. Just keep mixing. The amount of flour ratio you got here should take up all the flour off your hands. Just keep mixing and pushing together. It's a nice easy recipe. Simply just mix, mix, mix. Like I said, if you've got a KitchenAid or a big mixer at home, this will work quite well. If you wanted to half the recipe because your mix is too small, equally the same, just half the ratios down. and literally just keep adding the liquid whilst it's kneading on the machine. I'm going to add the rest of it now, and then just scoop out all that bit there. You don't want to waste any of it, you just weigh it all out. All that goes into there, like that. Just pop that over there, and literally just knead and mould together the flour and the liquid. It does look a little bit wet at the moment, don't panic, it'll all be fine. Once the oats start absorbing some of that liquid and the flour, it'll all be good. So nice little mix up. Over there to me here, I've got that flour, spare flour, which I'm going to sprinkle on the table in a minute. And once I've mixed all these ingredients together, I'm going to knead it just a little bit on the table, not much. Just want to start working the starch a little bit in the flour, just to help it along its way. It does look a little bit wet at the moment, but don't worry, don't panic, it'll all be fine. Nice bit of mixing here, just make sure you get right to the bottom of the bowl. As you can see at the bottom, now everything's nicely mixed. You get your hands right in there, get it mixed. Run your fingers around the edge, get everything off the edge of the bowls. Everything is into the bread dough mix. Now I know the dough is ready, all I'm going to do now is grab a little bit of flour to get all the excess stuff off your hands. You've got a little bit of flour on your hands, you just rub your hands on top of the dough, so you get any of the excess bread dough off your hands into the dough. Now what we're going to do is we're going to flour the surface quite heavily, so you don't want it to stick like that. And at the same time, I've got myself a nice flat non-stick tray. You can use baking paper, you can do anything you want, and you just want to flour that tray up as well nicely. So that just aids the non-sticking process of the bread. So like that, nice and simple. So put that to one side. Also behind me, I've got the oven preset at 220 degrees. We're going to pop it in the oven for about 10 minutes at 220 degrees. The bench is floured, the tray is floured, and the oven is preset at 220 degrees. We're going to tip all the dough onto our floured surface. To do this, you just tip your bowl on the edge and put your hands behind the back. Since you've got a little bit of flour in your hand, it does aid the non-sticking process, and just dump it out onto the bench. Like I said, you don't need to add too much more flour to it. It should be fine. Even if you let it sit for a few minutes, if you think it's a bit wet, pop it over there again. If you think it's a bit wet, let it sit, and the liquid will be absorbed by the oats and the flour. Now the kneading process is very simple. Just knead it nice and gently. What you do, the heel of your hand, you just push and pull back. Push and pull back. If the dough is too big, like this one could be a bit too big, cut it in half. You can make two little dough balls with it. I'm just going to push it all together with the other hand and just kneading and pushing, kneading and pushing. You will feel when it gets to the right consistency, because it's starting to get sticky again. As you can probably see here, it's starting to become a bit sticky and tacky again. Just bring in all the excess flour you've got on your bench and all the excess trimmings which you stick, just rub it on the bench like that, and back again on your hands. Just make sure you get every last bit off. This is where you get all the wastage. You don't want to waste anything here, so make sure all that there, you see that on the table, all that comes off and that goes into your bread dough. If you've got a mixer bowl, or a KitchenAid, sorry, this will be equally as easy. Literally no mess at all. You just push it all together, put the dough on top, and knead back through all that stuff there. Now it's very simple. You can do whatever shape you want with this dough. It doesn't have to be kneaded for too long either. Literally until it's all come together and it's formed a nice shape. As you can see there, it's come together now nicely. There's no more excess flour, too much on the bench. There's no excess trim on the bench. It's just literally keep doing that until your bench is tidy. Now if you put too much flour on the bench, you'll have to work it a little bit more. As you can see here, I've put just enough. All the bench is tidy, there's no wastage on the table. Nicely come together to form a dough. And once you've got your dough ready together like this, and it's perfectly consistent, and it's nice, in a nice shape, you now get your tray ready, and you shape your dough to your tray whatever size you want. If you want it long, like that, if you want it round, that's perfectly fine. Shape it however you want to shape it. I'm going to go for a long one, like a loaf. So just roll it out like this. So you've got a nice loaf shape. Very simple. You can use a loaf tin if you want. I like to freestyle it because it does spread out a little bit. And you just literally flip it over and pop it on your tray. Nice and simple. Now a couple optional extras here. You can either flour it like that to get a nice crust on the top, or you can do what I'm going to do, which is just put a little bit more oats on top. You get a nice toasted oat flavour. They don't have to stick too much. I'm not interested in them sticking too much. The key ingredient, the key method, to do all this is you need a knife and you need to score it. And you see all these YouTube and Instagram people, they score it nice patterns. This one doesn't have to bother. You can literally put nice deep gashes. Now make sure the key is nice and deep. I'm going to put a nice cross in mine, nice and deep. Now don't be afraid, you've got to go deep to it, okay? You've got to let that air in there, otherwise if you don't, and you've not got it deep enough, the dough will burn before it cooks in the middle, because it's quite dense otherwise, and the heat won't be able to get into it, so you've got to cut it, just let the heat in and let the steam come out. So there you go, nice easy loaf. Now I'm going to put it in the oven at 220 degrees for 10 minutes, then turn the oven down to between 170 and 190 degrees, and I'm going to splash a bit of water inside just to help the crust go nice and crispy. But there you go, nice simple, nice and easy recipe. A nice easy soda bread with no improving needed, no yeast needed, very limited ingredients, very simple, very easy. As you can see now, we've got a nice loaf of bread. So what you're going to do now is get yourself a tray at the bottom of the oven, one of the ones you don't really care much about. Grab yourself a tea towel. I've had my tray in the oven already for a minute. So I open the oven and I pop the bread in. A middle shelf in the oven, I'm going to pull the tray out and then I'm going to have a glass of water, preferably really cold water. I'm going to tip that into that tray, pour a little bit of steam, I'm going to shut the oven and wait for 10 minutes. And once your 10 minutes is up, obviously you can clearly see I've cleaned down a little bit since my 10 minutes has been going. 10 minutes is up, turn your oven down to about 170, 190, something like that. Maybe 180 is the perfect temperature in between the two. And cook it for about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes max. Checking it after 20 would be the ideal world. Just tap the bottom, if it sounds hollow, it's ready. If it doesn't, put it back in for another 10 minutes. Now I'm going to do that now to mine. We'll turn that down now. Cook it a little bit more so it cooks it inside, and whilst I've done that I've got myself a cooling rack ready, so when the bread does come out I can put it on the cooling rack and let it cool down